So this week's Parashat Yitro is most notable for what? The Decalogue, the 10 Commandments. But around here, we like things that are secret. Not people's secrets, because that would get us into trouble, but secrets in the Torah, right? Things that are right in front of us, but aren't as obvious. So we're going to look at a commandment that is in this week's Parsha, but is outside the scope of the 10 Commandments. But it is equally as important to living a Jewish spiritual life. So early on in the Parsha, the man after whom this week's Torah portion is named, Yitro, and his anglicized name, Jethro, offers his son-in-law, Moses, some counsel. I'm sure parent-in-laws don't do that here. They never give anybody advice. And after a day of observations, Jethro realizes that Moses is taking on too much legal responsibility within his community. So Jethro advises Moses to delegate tasks to others so that the work becomes more manageable. But even with the help, Moses remains the mouthpiece of God. So it's still Moses' duty to bring disputes before God and to enjoin upon the people the laws, the teachings, to make known to them the way they are to go and the practices they are to follow. So I'm going to just show what I just read here. And I just want to ask, I'm going to invite somebody, anybody, you can shout it out, I don't have a microphone. What feels ambiguous in this passage? What's not clear? Yeah, we're thinking. There's more than one way. Okay, so the way, right? David, were you going to say something? No. Okay, there's more than one way. What else? Anybody? You've got that Shabbat feeling. Okay, the Shabbat feeling is one way, right? So the idea here is that we have no idea what this way is, right? We can figure out what the teachings are, what the laws are. We can go to the Torah and the Talmud, and we can figure out the practices, but the way is a little ambiguous. So it seems like Jethro is telling Moses, this is one idea as well, to teach people to follow laws and teachings and practices, and that what follows the way is explaining what the way is, right? So we have to them the way they are to go and the practices. So perhaps the way are the practices that they must follow. And this definition would support the use of the word derech, so in Hebrew the way is haderech, in the common yeshiva expression that someone fell off the derech. Raise your hand if you've heard that before. Some of us, okay. So when you fall off the derech, that means that you are a Jewishly identifying person who has left an Orthodox community, or you've stopped following Jewish law and tradition in an Orthodox manner. But isn't it kind of redundant to say something and then follow it with its definition? A little bit, right? So maybe it's that the way is something entirely separate, that it has a definition outside of laws, traditions, and practices. So we're going to do a little concordance work. That's what we call it at clergy school. That means you're looking at one word in different passages of the Torah. So we're going to take a look at Genesis. So here we are told what is meant by the way, right? We hear God is telling Abraham that Abraham must instruct the children to keep the way of Adonai by doing what is just and right. So that would mean that the way is just and right? That's what it means, to do what is just and right. But what is just and right can be really ambiguous, and we might have to run around looking for it, right? Looking for the answer. So we're also going to take a look at Deuteronomy. Twice in Deuteronomy, we see, once again, the way, right? Anyone recognize this passage in our liturgy? We're nodding. Can we? V'ahavta. V'ahavta. So when you walk along the way, great. And when you walk in God's ways. Okay. So what are we doing here? Is the way, is it a path that we physically move along, right? Is there motion? Does God walk? What's happening? So I want to share now insight from one of my favorite Jewish philosophers, whose name is Martin Buber. He wrote an entire blueprint to what he believes is the way that we're talking about here, Haderach. And his piece is literally entitled The Way of Man, the Way of Humanity. And we're only going to review his conclusion, but it's a 6-step theory, so if you ever want to hear more about that, we can talk offline. Martin Buber revealed his wisdom about the way not with instructions, but through metaphorical Hasidic teachings. So in the last section of his work, Buber shares the following story to convey his interpretation of the way. There was once a man named Isaac, not our Isaac, a different Isaac, who lived in Krakow in severe poverty. One night, Isaac had a dream in which he was ordered to search for treasure buried under a bridge. And this bridge was leading to the king's castle in Prague. Makes sense, right? Treasure in a castle. And after dreaming the same dream for a 3rd time, Isaac set out on a journey to Prague. He's literally moving. But when he arrived, he saw sentries guarding the bridge day and night. So he didn't do any digging for treasure. Yet Isaac returned to the bridge every morning and every evening, just seeing if someone would leave the premises. And finally, the captain of the guard noticed Isaac's behavior, and he asked Isaac if he was looking for someone or something. Isaac told him about the dream, and the captain laughed. The captain said, "You poor fool with holes in your shoes. You walked all this way because of a dream? Who believes in dreams? I was once told a dream, to wander to Krakow, to find the house of a Jew named Isaac. I can only imagine myself pulling every house apart because half the Jews in Krakow are named Isaac." And just then, the Jew, the Isaac of Krakow, bowed to the captain, returned home, and dug up the treasure beneath his house, where it had been all along. This tale makes clear to us, explains Buber, that there is a certain something, a great treasure, that can only be found in the place where one stands. Buber writes, "Most of us are completely unaware that we rarely savor the moment. Too often we are looking for treasure somewhere else, looking for what we believe is missing in some other place of the world, in some other place of mind." For Buber, the treasure is the way, and the way is twofold. It is feeling divine presence, whose light only shines, only dwells among us, when we ourselves find presence. It is here where we have been placed, exactly here in any given moment, and nowhere else that the treasure may be found. Though the term derech, or way, implies origin and destination, forward movement getting from point A to point B, to Buber, it is in fact being fully present in place, mind and heart. That is what Jewish life asks of us, commands of us. So you might be thinking now, wow, Rabbi, took you a really long time to get to your message, right, to find presence. And you wouldn't be wrong, and I wouldn't blame you. But isn't that the exact point? Do we not always look for a shorter route, look for instant gratification, for the message, for the point, which is so easy to do these days with Amazon, right? Everything is at our fingertips. And it's not that I think it's bad to want, but I do think that our crowded minds and our tendency to compare our lives to the lives of others causes us to miss the treasures right in front of our eyes, buried beneath us. So the next time we find ourselves, and believe me, I'm talking to myself here too, thinking about a conversation from last week, or planning our grocery list for tomorrow, wondering if we'll ever have what we think we need or what we really, really want, perhaps we can accept the commandment to go along Buber's way, if just for tonight, to focus on the now, that for God to dwell here with us, we must look around in our heart and just